Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second lesson here for week one of the TKE virtual member education program. Welcome back for those who joined us for our first video, and welcome for the first time for those who skipped it and jumped right into this one. My name is Alex Winson, and I'm excited to be with you and be able to share some things that will hopefully help you get through this period of uncertainty, of unknowns, and of really a lack of structure as it relates to schoolwork and TEAC work and everything else going on right now. But hopefully these are also lessons that you can carry over even once we're through this period, when you get into the next stage of your college career or of your life. Today, we're going to be talking about a few things, one of which is study habits and what it's going to take to stay on top of your schoolwork and get that done at a high level, even throughout this process of being home and being away from campus. Talk about mental well-being, mental health, both as it relates to our current circumstances and also as it relates to you as a college student going through your last year or 4 years or whatever stage you're in your college experience, how you can practice some good mental health habits to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And then lastly, just closing out the semester, we're getting into the range where finals are coming up. You probably have some big group projects. You probably have some different big assignments and want to offer some perspective on that as well. Again, my name is Alex Winson. I'm the Director of Education for Tau Kappa Epsilon. If you watched the first video, you know a little more about me, but really my responsibility is to help educate the members of the fraternity through our programs and events and conferences and through different initiatives like this, different online pieces where we're taking information and trying to spread it out to as many members as possible when they can consume it on their own time. You don't have to come to an RLC or a province forum. This is available to anyone who wants it. A quick recap of our first video this week. Again, for those who watched it, hopefully you had some good takeaways and you were able to complete some of the things that I mentioned. If you didn't watch it, it was a quick refresher on expectations of us as TEACs in the fraternity. So that, I think, applies to anyone. It applies to first-year freshmen who are just getting started and going through their new member education program. And it also could apply to juniors or seniors, officers, guys who just need a quick reminder. So if you didn't watch that, I would encourage you to go give it a look, even if you already read those 2 chapters of the TEAC Guide when you got initiated 3 years ago. Hopefully, again, maybe we offer some different perspectives that you hadn't considered before. I talked about the focus points of this video, but just a quick recap there on your screen: studying, working from home, trying to establish some sort of routine and some sort of consistency being away from campus. And even for those who are alumni and watching this while you're away from your office and trying to manage different Zoom meetings and Skype and conference calls, talking about mental health. That's such an important topic right now, both for college students and for those in the professional world. I think the emphasis that's been placed on mental health in the last 2 or 3 years for us as a society has been really good, and some of the stigmas have slowly dropped off when it comes to addressing it. I'm not a mental health professional. I certainly am not an expert by any means, but I hope that through this video, again, my goal is to offer some different tips, some different points of emphasis. I've done some research and consumed some different pieces of media that I hope I can sum up that will be helpful to you in one way or another. Of course, if you do need to seek professional help, if you're looking for a little higher level guidance, I would strongly encourage you to do so. We'll talk about that a little later on, but it was important for me to address, and I think it's important for us as a headquarters office, TEAC headquarters, to make sure we're keeping our members updated and able to walk them through some different things with that. And then again, putting a close to the semester, putting a cap on things, getting everything done and submitted and getting on with your summer. Again, not knowing what that summer is going to look like or what the end of the semester is going to look like. We're also going to bring in a special guest, Cole Connor. He is the Collegiate Advisory Committee Chairman for Tau Kappa Epsilon. So Cole is actually an undergrad right now at the University of Houston. And as the CAC Chairman, he really is the official voice of the undergraduates as it relates to the international fraternity. So hopefully some of you have had a chance to meet Cole at RLCs or at Conclave, get to know him a little bit. And we're just going to talk to him about some of the things that he's picked up as a college student through his time at the University of Houston that will hopefully help those of you who are just getting started or looking for ways to refresh your planning. So we'll dive right in. We will get started with the first piece, which is building habits that are going to lead to success from home. There's going to be a few different pieces, as I mentioned, a few different pieces of media, some articles, some videos that I'm going to reference throughout this. My hope is that you'll go back and consume those on your own once this is over, and there'll be a big list at the end of everything I talk about. But the first piece that I looked at was from Forbes.com. Of course, brother Steve Forbes, a member of our fraternity. It's not why I picked this article though. And that article is 9 tips to be productive when working from home. So if you just go to Google and search Forbes 9 tips for working from home or Forbes working from home, and it's really addressed specifically to our current circumstances, which are that pretty much every campus and every place of work is shut down for an indefinite period of time. This article was released just a few weeks ago. So again, it was written in direct response to the current ongoing circumstances. There's a few things that I want to touch on and again, hopefully sum this article up that in a way that will be beneficial to you all. If you are studying from home, if you're taking tests from home, if you're taking classes from home, there's a few really big points that I want to make. The first point is create consistency. Create some sort of consistent, ongoing schedule so that you know what to expect when you wake up in the morning. I would encourage setting an alarm, right? Even if you don't have an official responsibility at a given time, you know, if you're working from home, set an alarm for the same time you get up for work. If you're studying from home, set an alarm for the time that you get up for your first class. I think by sleeping in and slowly just starting the day and rolling out of bed whenever you feel like, you get off to a slow start. By waking up, continuing with your morning routine that you had already established before all of this started, that's going to help you get the day started, I think, in a different mindset. And that consistency is going to lead to some different successes, I think, than starting every day a little differently. The flip side of that is don't get bored. You are in a unique position where you have the opportunity to maybe do some things that you didn't before. Maybe you can go get a workout in at 1 o'clock when previously you were in the office or you were in class at that time. Maybe you can, you know, watch one of your favorite TV shows that's on at 11 o'clock in the morning that you didn't have a chance to do. So still take time to do those things. I don't think there's anything wrong with those because they allow us to mix it up a little bit. But when it comes to the overall structure of your day, be consistent and don't just let circumstances dictate how you're going to respond to that specific day. The second big piece is creating boundaries. And by that, I mean talking to and working with those people who are sharing the space that you're living in right now. That could be your parents, could be your friends, could be a significant other, and maybe you're flying solo, and that's great. But it's important to establish those boundaries so that they know what you expect of yourself and what you expect of them. I think that it's probably, you probably think about your parents if you're trying to study from home and you think that they won't be an issue, but you know, maybe mom and dad are super excited to have you back for the end of the semester and they want to come talk to you all the time and ask you how classes are going and ask you how school's going. I don't think there's anything wrong with kindly saying, you know, hey mom, from 10:30 until noon today, I really need to dig in to this assignment, or I really need to focus on this test or on this class. But you have to articulate those things. You have to make them known. And it's the same thing if you have a significant other. Like I said, if you have roommates, you need to create those boundaries and you need to help them understand when is work time and when is playtime. And I say playtime, that can mean a number of things, right? But when it's playtime, you can, you know, whatever. It's whatever they want to do, whatever you want to do, that's perfectly fine. But during work time, being able to again articulate that, let them know what the expectations are and how you plan to get through that is going to help you be more successful. Creating some sort of support group is also huge. And again, that could be friends, classmates, parents, but making sure that you have people that are holding you accountable and that you can hold accountable, because we are in a very isolated time right now. And even if you're watching this a year or two down the road and, you know, the coronavirus has long since passed and you're just trying to get some tips for working from home in general, creating a support group and creating that accountability within a group of people again, that's gonna help push you. That's gonna give you some checkpoints, some things to follow up with that are going to force you to be productive, for lack of a better term. And I think we could all use that little kick in the pants every now and then. So finding a support group, figuring out who that is, and making sure that everyone's on board to hold each other accountable. Your posture, your body language, that is huge as well. You're going to be a different level of productive sitting in a desk chair, sitting up straight, working in a similar environment that you would have if you were sitting at a desk in a class or sitting at a desk at work, than if you're feet up, lounging on the couch, lean back with your laptop on your lap, right? That creates a different mindset and a different mentality. So if you're really trying to dig in and get something done, I would encourage you to think about that, about your body language, about the level of energy that you create by changing your posture up. We'll talk about posture a little later on with the mental health aspect as well. There's nothing wrong with sitting in a chair with your laptop on your lap if you're trying to, do some research or just answering emails. I think that's fine. And we want you to be comfortable. But if you're really digging into writing a paper or to, again, doing a Zoom class or something along those lines, really, really pay attention to how you are sitting, to what your body is saying, and pay attention to those that you might see otherwise who have a different posture and have a different outlook on that, and think about their level of productivity and consider how yours is different and hopefully better than what they're exhibiting. Your dress is important being from home. And I know, again, that might seem a little counterintuitive, especially if you're not getting on video, if you're not getting on any sort of video chats. But you're going to be in a different mindset working from your pajamas all day, rolling out of bed, throwing on a t-shirt or waking up in the same clothes you slept in and trying to work all day, than if you get up and you change clothes. You don't have to wear a suit every day sitting at your kitchen table or sitting on your couch, obviously. And I certainly am not. But I also try and get up and throw on a different shirt, throw on a polo, throw on something that makes me feel a little more confident. It's little shifts like that, I think, in your mindset that can make a huge difference in your overall productiveness and your overall work output. And then the last thing, don't play the victim in all of this. We're all under difficult circumstances. We're all facing things that we didn't expect to be facing. The worst thing you can do is say, shucks, this is horrible. This is terrible. I might as well just throw in the towel, right? The semester's a wash, TKE's a wash, can't get anything done. Even if that might be how you feel deep down, don't let your mind tell you that, because you're going to respond accordingly. Stay strong mentally, stay on top of your stuff. Approach this with a positive attitude. Approach this with the attitude that you're going to get through it at an even higher level that you would have if nothing would have changed. And hopefully that leads to some different accomplishments than if you just, again, you throw your hands up and say, there's nothing I can do, it's all over. That victim mindset is very, very toxic. And it's not just, as is the case with a lot of this, it's not just in our current circumstances. It's with anything. Anytime you just tell yourself that you've lost and it's over and everything's messed up, that's what your body then believes. That's what your mind believes. So stay positive, stay upbeat, stay happy, and attack this with a positive attitude. And I think you're going to see some really good results out of your classwork and your work as well if you're working from home. I want to move now to the mental side of things. And first, I'm going to talk a little bit about mental well-being during the COVID-19 outbreak, and then I'm going to talk a little more about mental health in general throughout college. So I found an article. It's on the World Health Organization website, and you can see the link right there. It's who.int, and that's the long title of the article. But if you go to Google and type in WHO, mental health, COVID-19, this is what's going to pop up for you. And it's a 3 or 4 page article. I think it's very useful. There's some different things in there for medical personnel, for senior citizens, if you're dealing with young children. So they cover a lot of different aspects. But the overarching theme of the article is things are weird, and I'm not quite sure how to respond from a mental standpoint. My mind has not gotten wrapped around our current reality. And there's a few a few different lessons again that I pulled away from it that I want to share with you, hoping that you go and consume that. The first of which is practicing empathy. And that's important no matter what stage you are in your life. It's important no matter what if you're married or you're single or what religion or sexual orientation. Empathy is one of the most important things that you can practice as an adult. Right now, it's knowing that everyone's at a different place with this. Different people have different levels of concerns. You might not have any concern at all. There might be no threat of contracting the coronavirus to you personally. You might feel like even if you did get it, it's not a big deal. But maybe your best friend has a compromised immune system and they're very worried. Or maybe your grandparents or your parents are extremely stressed out about this. Just don't approach this with the mentality that the way you feel about it is the way everyone feels about it. And I think that's going to, it's better for you mentally because it creates a level of understanding that, that you're going to be dealing with all different situations and not that, your way is the best way. And it's going to be a lot better for those people around you. It's going to make you a lot better to be around, a lot more tolerable than if you just go about it with, a reckless attitude and don't change your way of thinking or of living at all. I think another big piece of this is over consuming information. And that also is in the article. Be smart about the information you're consuming. There's obviously press conferences every day. It's the leading story that every single news program leads off with. It's a story they close with. And it's pretty much everything in between. We could drown ourselves in COVID-19 information right now. What I will tell you is if it's stressing you out, if you're not feeling good about it, turn it off. There's nothing wrong with that. Not all of us need to sit in front of the TV for 18 hours a day and watch the news and check in on the latest developments. It's good to be informed. It's good to understand what's going on. But I think after a while, it wears on you. And the constant, it's a lot of bad news. And the constant consumption of that bad news, again, is going to wear you down. So take a break, unplug. Don't feel like you need to constantly be up to date on the latest and most updated information with the coronavirus, because, again, that's going to push you into a worse place mentally, consuming a lot of news that isn't positive. Other things from that article: staying connected socially with your friends, with your family, with those people who are important to you. Social distancing does not mean social isolation. There are ways to still talk to people. I'm talking to you right now on a video chat. I have FaceTimed my parents. My daughter's been FaceTiming with her grandparents. There's a lot of different ways to stay connected. And the more human contact you are able to create, the better off you're going to be, and the better it's going to make you feel. It's going to enrich you. It's going to fill up your bucket in a sense, being able to have those conversations rather than even just relying on text and email. That's a different level of communication than a face-to-face video chat, right? So think about that and make time to stay connected. I talked about a routine earlier. I talked about scheduling your day out. Schedule some time every day to FaceTime a buddy, FaceTime a chapter brother, FaceTime a member of your pledge class you haven't talked to in a while, FaceTime an alumnus, whatever the case may be. Whoever it is that you need to talk to, stay in touch with them. Don't use this current circumstance to allow yourself to fall by the wayside when it comes to keeping in touch with the people who are important to you. The routine piece touched on a lot earlier, but again, the more that your life is able to stick to a routine, the less stress that you're going to create for yourself with unknown circumstances. The more that is known when you wake up every morning about what you're going to do and what you're going to attack that day, the better off your mental health is going to be, because as we'll talk about in a second, stress is a huge, huge piece when it comes to mental health issues. And then lastly, make sure you take time for yourself. A lot of people are exhibiting extreme selflessness in this circumstance, whether that's the medical personnel who are on the front lines, whether that's ambulance drivers, whether that's the grocery store workers who are keeping the shelves stocked. This situation has allowed us, I think, to see a lot of good in a lot of people that we wouldn't have otherwise. But by the same token, If you're spending all your time worrying about other people, taking care of other people, you're going to wear down quickly. So make time for yourself, whether that's exercising, working out, whether that's watching a movie, whether that's playing video games. That is just as important as making sure that you're empathetic and taking time for other people. The next piece is mental well-being throughout college. So again, I think all of you watching are probably at different stages. Some of you are freshmen, just wrapping up your first year. Some of you might be juniors or seniors who've been in college for a while. Some of you are probably alumni who have graduated and have a full-time job. But there's a few principles that I think apply to all of us that will hopefully stick. Hopefully some of these tips and tricks and little pieces of information you can pull from as you think about how you're taking care of yourself. College creates a lot of new stress, especially for freshmen. It's a lot of unknowns. It's a lot of new responsibilities, new personal responsibilities, having to go to class and manage a schedule that's much less regimented than high school. You're probably away from home. You're not seeing the people that you're used to seeing every day. You're trying to balance TKE and school and maybe sports and other clubs on campus. A lot of new stress comes when you go away to college. And understanding that and acknowledging that, I think, is the first step in making sure that you're taking care of it and you're not letting that stress drown you. If you are struggling, if you're struggling with stress, if you're struggling with anxiety, depression, you should seek help, and you should not be ashamed or afraid to do so. Again, whether you're a college freshman or whether you're a 65-year-old alumnus, there's nothing wrong with seeking help when you need it. I think the brain in a way needs to be treated just like our body, where if you are sick, if you have a cough, if you have a cold, you're going to go to the doctor, right? If your mind is a little off and you need to treat your mental health, you should go seek professional help. You should talk to someone who can help you, just like your family physician is going to prescribe you medicine to get rid of your cough or get rid of your stomach ache. We don't think about mental health in that aspect, but mental health and physical health are similar in a sense that they can both be addressed, albeit it's going to be a little differently. But treat your mental health as though you would your physical health and your body. A lot of campuses, I think every campus, has resources that you can utilize. Most of them are free of charge. Most of them come with a promise of confidentiality. So whether that's a guidance counselor or a campus therapist or psychologist that's able to help get you through the issues that you're facing, utilize that, because frankly, you're paying your college tuition, you're paying for that resource. And if you're not using it, it's going to be used by someone else. So again, think about the resources your campus offers. And if you don't know, ask someone. Just ask the question to whoever you can. And I think a lot of campuses, even in this time, are still making themselves available and helping guide their students through the mental health aspects of this quarantine. The next piece there is finding a confidant, finding somebody that you can go to if you need to vent, if you need to share frustration. That's gonna, again, keep it confidential, maybe offer advice, but maybe just listen. And the fact that you're a part of TKE, the fact that you're a part of a fraternity gives you access, I think, that you wouldn't have otherwise. It gives you access to brothers who care about you as a person, who care about your personal development, who care about your emotional development and your emotional health. Don't be afraid to utilize that. Just like we talked about, you're paying for your campus resources. You joined a fraternity. Take advantage of the benefits. Take advantage of the guys who care about you, the brothers who are there for you, and use them throughout your time in college and in school to reach out to and to have those conversations with. I know that sometimes people, we as TKEs can badger each other a little bit or rag on each other at times. But when it comes to circumstances like this, when it comes to taking care of yourself and making sure that you're in a good place mentally, I think anyone who's a member of this fraternity would want what is best for their brother. And I would hope that's the case. And I would hope that you would hope that as well, and go into any of these conversations with that understanding. And then the last thing there listed, know thyself. And that's actually the theme of our Leadership Academy. Knowing thyself is the first step in any journey, leadership or physical health or mental health. Know who you are as a person. Make frequent time to check in with yourself. See how you're doing, see how you're feeling. And if something's off, address it. I talked about that already, about the different ways to address it, but checking in with yourself consistently and not letting things pile up, not letting the stress weigh you down, that is going to be the most important thing. Understanding how your own mind works and how different outside factors affect that, that is huge. And that's going to lead to you being, I think, extremely healthy in all aspects of your life. There is a TED Talk I'm going to suggest to you. Leon Taylor is the name of the gentleman who presents that TED Talk. He's a world-class Olympic diver, actually. So again, not a mental health professional, but offers a lot of really good advice. And the title of the TED Talk is right there. So go to YouTube, type that in. Go to Google, type it in. It's about 15 minutes long. It's not a bad watch at all. His big thing is the effects of stress on your mental well-being and the devices that you can use to cope with that. He talks about how stress is often the starting point for a larger mental health issue, which we already talked about as it relates to going away to college and all the different stressors that can bring in. He actually equates stress, I thought this was interesting, to a physical poisoning of the body. And that just goes back to the reference I made earlier about if you knew that you consumed something that was poisonous to your body, you would go immediately and consult a higher level person who's going to help you through that. And you should treat stress the same way. And then his big takeaway was the effects of physical activity. And everyone's going to approach this differently. Some people are marathon runners. Some people haven't worked out a day in their life. Wherever you are on that spectrum, when you start to feel that stress coming on, when you start to feel like something's not right, don't discount the help that physical activity can provide. And Leon states it much better than I can, but that is the overarching theme. And that's not to say that that's the only thing that's going to be able to help you. It's not to say that if you're facing deep depression or anything like that, that going out for a 10-minute walk is going to cure your ailment. But I do think that there's some value there in changing up your atmosphere, changing up your environment, and doing something a little different that's going to take your mind off the things that are forcing it, that are bringing it down. It's also going to create some incentive for you as a college student to keep off what I say. There's the freshman 15. I think a lot of us know it more as the freshman 30 or the college 50 or whatever number that is. But creating a physical activity routine is going to help you stay on top of your physical health, which is going to make you feel a little better about your mental health. And this is different. And he talks about this, and I won't butcher his words too bad. This is different than going to the gym to try and increase your bench max, or going to the gym to try and cut 50 pounds. This is 20 minutes, going for a walk for 20 minutes, pacing around the room while you're on a phone call, going out for a quick jog. That small difference, that small change can make a world of difference when it comes to your mental activity and your ability to manage stress. And the last thing there, even if you can't go out, even if it's raining or you're not in a big room where you can go walk around, the difference in changing your posture, changing your breathing, changing other physical things about you, changing clothes even, which was some of what I talked about in the working from home. Those little changes, the ability to switch things up, to get out of one groove and get into a new groove, those can be huge for the mental health aspect. And hopefully, again, you go watch that video and you can take some of that in, and it helps you make a change or two in your life, because I really think that Leon nailed it. And there's tons of other aspects to that as well. Again, I'm not saying a 20-minute walk can cure every single mental health issue out there, but I think it's one small piece of information as you build up your knowledge base in this area that can be very, very useful. The last thing then, before we get to our special guest, is how you close out the semester. And there's the 4 points there that I'll touch on quickly. The first, stick to a schedule, stick to a routine, schedule out when you're going to focus on different classes, on different projects, and on different course loads. Don't just start every day with a blank slate where you say, what am I going to do today? That's not a good recipe for success. Build your schedule out at the beginning of the week, the beginning of the month, and understand what you're going to be working on and attacking each day. Obviously, that'll change. There will be wrenches thrown into that schedule, but if you have a schedule to start with, it makes those changes come a lot easier. Be honest with yourself about your workload. Be honest with yourself about your level of activity. If you know that you're going to tune out an hour into studying, don't try and sit down and study for 2 hours. Study for an hour, eat a snack, go for a walk, come back and study for another hour. It goes back to knowing thyself. Know your successes, know your failures, and be able to address those as you're building a plan to study and do your projects and get ready for the summer. Managing your workload is maybe the most important thing. It is huge. Don't save everything for the end. Don't try and cram for your test. Don't try and finish an essay at 4 o'clock in the morning when it's due at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's not going to be putting your best foot forward. That's not being the best version of yourself. Make sure that you're managing your workload appropriately and not procrastinating, not putting everything off. And it goes back to the scheduling, and it goes back to being honest with yourself about knowing, okay, I can focus on this for an hour and then I can go eat a bowl of ice cream, and that's a success, versus the procrastination of, oh, if I start on this, I have to spend 8 hours on it. And you just keep putting it off because of how daunting that task seems. And then lastly, staying ahead of your projects, because the better you're on top of your group projects, your big assignments, any final papers that you might have, the better you're going to be able to study for those final exams. If you're focused on a group project or on a huge paper that you haven't done or you haven't written, while also trying to study for finals, again, I keep talking about the recipe for success. That's not it. That is setting yourself up for tremendous failure, probably, frankly, on both of those things. So stay ahead of those projects, of the big assignments that you might have to finish up the semester, so that you can be in a good position to study for finals and make sure that your tests are well studied for and well prepared for. I'm going to bring our friend in now, Cole Connor, the CAC Chairman. Hopefully give you some good advice and hopefully be able to share some good points with you all. Welcome in here to our good friend Cole Connor, CAC Chairman. Cole, how we doing, bud?
Doing good, staying sane and trying to keep busy.
Thank you for putting together a nice backdrop for the crowd. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Solid. What we've been talking about so far in this presentation is really taking care of yourself throughout college. And Cole is a junior at the University of Houston, the Epsilon Omicron chapter, held various positions in his chapter. He is currently the CAC chairman, and I'll let him talk about that in just a second, but wanted to bring in someone who really is in the same shoes as a lot of you that are watching this, and someone who can speak on some of the things we've already talked about, where hopefully you can take his words and put them into action, and think of Cole as a resource, as he goes through a lot of the same things with his studies, with his TEAC work that you all are going through right now. So Cole, the first thing again I would ask is just to briefly describe your role as the Collegiate Advisory Committee Chairman. What does that mean to those who maybe haven't heard of the CAC before?
Yeah, so I serve as the chairman for the CAC, which by definition is the Collegiate Advisory Committee. I was selected with 8 other individuals from across the country, and we serve as the geographical representation of all of the undergraduates across the country and Canada. As we have 9 selected, we then go through an election committee where I was then elected the chairman. So I now sit on the Grand Council for a 2-year term with voting rights, and my sole job and role is representing not only the over 12,000 undergraduates we have, but representing their interests and their wants and needs at every Grand Council meeting.
Awesome. Thank you. As we get into the content here, one of the big takeaways, hopefully, from this video that people will take home is the building of habits and the creation of habits. What are some habits that you've been able to create as a college student that have allowed you to be successful in the classroom, in TEAC, in your extracurriculars? How has building habits really led to the positive outcomes that you've seen while you've been in college?
Yeah, a lot of times I look back on my freshman year and wish that some of the habits and things that I know now were something that I had from day one. It's one of the reasons why I served as a freshman orientation leader, because I believe that it's a lot nicer to have all these habits and things that you know early. So you look back on my freshman year, there was a lot of things I would do differently. It's why I believe strongly as well in our new member education across the country. I believe that if we can educate our young guys and future TEAC members across the country, that we can really see the bar raised and some success gone. I've got four major tips that I think really hit the high note here. Number one is keep a routine. Routines allow structure in your life, and something that humans crave by nature is routines and structure. One of the best routines that I have, and I think many people in college can benefit from, is getting up at the same time every day. I think that's something that's overlooked. I think that's something that's really important. I remember my freshman year, I was getting up at or going to sleep at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, getting up, going home, or going to class, really tired, coming home, taking naps, going back to class, and I really wasn't focusing. And so if you can build that one initial routine to get up every day, say at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., and go to the gym, eat some breakfast, and go through your day, I think that's really helpful. Number two is schedule everything. Starting from the first day you grab a syllabus, to chapter meetings, to class times, to personal calls, something like this, to homeworks and tests. You put it in your calendar. I mean, we've got phones, we've got computers. I use the calendar on my phone more than anything. I wake up every day, my Alexa tells me what I've got going. I've got, a call, I've got homework due, I've got a class at this time. And so that really helps me in not forgetting to do things. And it also helps me as I'm walking around campus, or if I get a phone call from somebody that, hey, what are you doing today? What do you got going on tomorrow? I can pull that up and make sure that I've actually got time for someone and that I'm not missing anything along the way. Everyone claims that they're really busy, but when you start to schedule your days out a little more, you realize you've got a lot more free time than you thought. Number three is fairly obvious, but I think it's really important. One is go to class, and two, pay attention. In college, I've found that a lot of my fraternity brothers and sometimes myself, we begin to weigh out options of going to class or going to something else. And I really think that as long as you go to class, you pay attention, and you actually try to learn things, I think when it comes back around to studying, it's a lot easier to go over that content and not have to essentially teach yourself something. Uh, you may not realize it as well, but your professors really notice when you're there and you're not there. And a lot of times that can be the lifeline or the savior and the killer between a really good grade or a really bad grade. We're once again, we're creatures of habit. We always sit in the same spots when we go to class. Your professors notice. And, I had a professor when I was in a class of 500 people notice that I wasn't there for 2 classes in a row. And he made a comment about it. I had never once talked to him. So I think that's really important to just go to class, pay attention, be present. And the last thing is just don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's huge. I think a lot of times we think going to college is this big, scary social experiment that it's you versus the world. And if you can miraculously come out of it alone, you're going to be super successful. I think that's completely different. I've found that being successful in college is fairly easy for all the people who ask for help. I certainly don't have all the answers, and nobody has all the answers. But when you ask people who do have the answers to certain things, it can really help build your knowledge about things. And it can also be the difference, once again, between a C and A. I had a personal experience like that where I went into a final 2 days before, not knowing anything. I reached out to a fraternity brother, really nice guy, and knew nothing about geology, but I asked him because he was a geology major. He ended up teaching me chapters 1 through 24 overnight with like 3 other guys. And happy to say I got 105 and 101 on the test and a makeup test. So it would turn my like high C, low B to an A. And so that was really great. So just asking for help is the last tip that I have. Whether it's TEAC, whether it's academics, whether it's professional development, we like to help each other as humans. And, we like to feel that we've done something to improve someone's life. So just reaching out for help and asking people for help is huge.
A lot of really good stuff there. Congratulations on behalf of TEAC Nation on the geology score.
Thank you.
I would probably not recommend to those watching to wait until 2 days before the test.
I agree.
Okay, I was just making sure we're on the same page there.
No.
You talked a little bit at the beginning about getting off to a bit of a slow start in your college career as a freshman. What are some challenges that you faced early in your time in college and possibly in TEAC as well that you had to overcome by doing some of those things you just talked about?
Yeah. I think early on, we in college, we kind of figure out that life isn't fair. We all fail. In some of my experiences, I've had few mistakes that were self-imposed, and I've had a lot of others that were out of my control. I failed a class before that was not fun to do, and that was lack of discipline. I've hung around negative people who just really bring me down and made me feel less motivated. Made mistakes that I've regretted, but I've also lived through things like Hurricane Harvey, and then we're all living through the COVID-19 pandemic right now. Those are a lot of things that are out of our control. Um, I think the biggest thing to take away to taking challenges on is learning how to adapt. Once again, humans, we just crave that schedule and that we are creatures of habit. And we don't like change. We hate change. We really don't like it. And I think if you can realize that change is good, change happens, and learning how to take those blows as they come and learning how to overcome those challenges that are thrown in your way, I think that's really huge. I think that's just, once you have that tunnel vision on something that you want to be successful, or tunnel vision on something that you want to do, and you have that mindset that I'm going to almost die before that doesn't happen, I think that's when you really overcome a lot of these challenges. That idea that, yeah, I am going to get an A in that class, or I am going to raise $50,000 for St. Jude. I don't care if we're stuck indoors for the next 90 days. It's just going to happen. And once you have that mindset and that belief, I think you can overcome pretty much any challenge.
Perfect. And that sets up the next thing I wanted to ask, which is we are all in a situation that we didn't sign up for, that we didn't bargain for, with being at home. And a lot of students I know are having to take finals from home and do big assignments from their couch or from their living room. How have you adjusted your routine, and what are a couple things that you've made sure to carry into your current situation that have helped you stay on top of your schoolwork and continue your success away from campus?
Yeah. So I think it was March. It was early March when the University of Houston announced that we were going all online. And from that day, I sent an email out firsthand to all of my professors, and I asked, what work was being changed. Were there any changes to the syllabus, and if they had an updated syllabus. So I immediately got that. I think by Wednesday when they announced Monday. And so on Wednesday, I sat down and I rescheduled everything out. So I, knew what was, group projects were canceled, group projects were changed. And so I think it was really big to sit down and just reschedule all of my things for the semester. A lot of times, we just go, oh, well, we got it in an email, so I'll remember that. A lot of times it just slips our minds. And so I think the big thing for me was just realizing that, class times were updated, class schedules were updated, homeworks and tests were updated. And so just actually sitting down and having the time to sit down and reschedule all of that. And then I've also kind of scheduled in like free time, because most of my days is spent, I've got a computer station here in front of me that's two monitors, a TV. And so I can get caught up here all day and just go to town on whether it's teak stuff, whether it's homework, whether, playing Call of Duty, or, getting on the PlayStation. I schedule in some free time to, take my dog for a walk and go run, go work out. So scheduling times as well to keep your mental self in check, and just, going over all those materials early have really helped me stay on top of my stuff.
That's great. And I think the emphasis on being proactive instead of
Yeah.
reactive with everything is really important. As even if people out there have not done that yet, if they've not reached out to professors, or hopefully by now they have an updated idea of what the end of the semester looks like. I think taking those proactive steps to reach out and start the conversation are going to lead to much more success than just sitting back and waiting. Um, you started to talk about it a little, and I want you to talk about it a little bit more. When you think about the environment that you've created for yourself throughout college, whether it's your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, how have you done that? How have you surrounded yourself with the right people and made sure to stay on top of your physical well-being, and why do you feel that that's been so important for you?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing when you talk about creating a healthy environment for yourself, a lot of people want to think it's your room, it's the things that you're going. A lot, it's everything. It's your surroundings. Think of the not only the things but the people who you have around you. Uh, Once again, I lived with a couple of guys at one point in my life who really weren't motivated, and I found myself just kind of falling into that, not being motivated. And suddenly you go move with a couple of your fraternity brothers, and suddenly you're motivated to go, move mountains. And I think people can be the difference between pushing you forward or holding you back. You think about as well as your habits and your lifestyle. Are you placing yourself for success every day? There's a little book that I've read once. It was called Making Your Bed Every Day. It's by a U.S. Navy Admiral, William McRaven, I believe is his name. And he discusses how routines and habits is something that I talked about at the beginning of this. Essentially set yourself up for success. And it starts with the idea that making your bed every day, which is a very small task, but if you can do it right, it leads to a chain, like mental chain reaction. It gets things done and working through the day. And if there's one thing I can emphasize is, the preparation, is setting yourself up for greatness and setting yourself up for success, to lead a healthy lifestyle. I think that's huge. I make my bed every day, even if I sleep till noon and stay in my pajamas all day. I make my bed because for me, I make my bed, then I get up, I get on my computer, I check my emails, and I go, okay, there's something else to do. And then mentally, it just keeps me going and keeps me going all day long.
Excellent. That's great. I appreciate the wisdom. I think a lot of that lines up with what we've shared so far, and some of the different resources that I've shared with those who are watching, that hopefully they take advantage of. But to hear from someone who's going through it, and again, in the same shoes as a lot of you all, hopefully has made it real and made it more relevant. Cole, is there anything else that you'd want to share with those that are watching, new members or otherwise?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things for us is, one, finding a balance. Now that we've found ourselves indoors, a lot of times, you're finding yourself playing more video games, or finding yourself sleeping more, staying up late, watching more TV. Find that fair balance. Realize that, take care of your school, take care of your prior commitments, and then allow yourself time to relax. So finding that balance, I think, is huge, and keeping a routine so that you don't feel like you've got this cabin fever. Keep that same routine you have from school, or build a new one. And I think, my last tip here is, when we look at our fraternity, you talk about, opportunity out of defeat. I think that this situation provides essentially a new opportunity out of defeat. And, it's time to author your own opportunity out of defeat, or your own chapter's opportunity out of defeat. We got a lot of professionals. We got a lot of guys who are stuck at home with nothing to do. Reach out to them. They're just as bored as we are. Schedule a Zoom call in. I know I've been scheduling a whole bunch of Zoom calls for our chapter. We just did one with a lady from St. Jude talking about how we can continue our St. Jude Teak Week with the goal of raising $40,000. We've got people coming in talking about alumni engagement. We've got people coming in we had Donnie come in and talk about leadership. We've got a lot of people who are now a little more free than they have been. So use this time to really, really learn and, become better. Don't use it as an excuse to sleep in all day. Don't use it as an excuse to just hang out and do nothing. Use this as an opportunity to get better and come back in the fall and just really kill it on recruitment, and really kill it for your chapters, and just really kill it.
Fantastic. Absolutely. I know that you take full advantage of the resources at your disposal, as does the entire chapter there. And I think that's super important. That's one of the things actually in the first video that Donnie talked about, was making sure that you're reaching out to our office and asking for help if you need it. And hopefully those listening will take that to heart and will do so. Yeah. Appreciate the time, Cole. Always fun talking. And thank you for shaving the mustache before we got on today. That worked out
Absolutely.
well. So thank you again. Hopefully you took something positive away from what Cole shared, and appreciate it. And I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Alex.
And thank you to Cole again. It was important for me to be able to bring in somebody who's in the same shoes as a lot of you, who's going through a lot of the same things, who I know personally, and I know personally has done a very good job of addressing these challenges, for him to just be able to share a few pointers on how you might be able to improve your habits and might be able to improve your well-being throughout your time in college. That's all for this lesson. Again, hopefully you took away a few good nuggets, and hopefully I gave you some things to think about, to go explore. There's the 3 pieces of media that I mentioned throughout the time here: the Forbes article, the World Health Organization article, and the YouTube TED Talk. it would take you probably a half hour total to go knock out all three of those things. And I would strongly encourage you to do it. I just scratched the surface on a lot of it, and you're only going to make yourself better. You're only going to improve your circumstances by enhancing that education. I talked on the first video about starting a journal, starting somewhere to keep your thoughts, to jot down notes as you consume this new member education or this member education. You go through this process. If you've done that, thank you. I think that you're going to see the benefits from it immediately, but approach these pieces of information the same way as you'd approach your reading from the TEAC guide. How is this important to me? How does this affect me? What are some key points that I'm taking away? And the more you're able to journal and write those things down, the better you're going to digest and be able to put these techniques into practice. And then remember, again, if you watch the first video, I challenged everyone to go out and have some sort of virtual brotherhood event before Monday. And maybe that's sometime next week now, maybe that's Tuesday or Wednesday, but start a Zoom meeting, get your pledge class together, get your officer group together, reach out to an alum. I talked about the importance of social connectiveness through all of this. We all need to stay connected as TEACs. We all need to stay connected in that brotherhood that we joined, because that's the expectation that we have. And that's been flipped on its head a little bit, but there's nothing that says you can't keep that same level of connectivity in a brotherhood even through all of this. So I'd encourage you to do that. I challenge you to do it, and hopefully you take advantage. And then next week we're gonna roll right into week 2. We're gonna be talking about chapters 3 and 4 of the TEAC guide, which include the history of the organization and all of our traditions and symbols. We're going to talk about that in one. And then the other one is a piece on financial management. We talked about mental well-being. I want to talk about financial well-being next week. Whether you're a freshman in college or whether you're getting ready to graduate, I think addressing our finances and staying on top of those is going to be extremely helpful. And we have a special guest to speak there as well who has a lot of experience in that field. So thank you all. My contact information is there if you want to reach out, if you need any of this information, if you want access to this PowerPoint, happy to provide it. Thank you all for your time. I enjoyed talking with you, and we'll talk again soon. Goodbye.